back to the Apartment 6 podcast. I'm Jess, and I'm actually alone today. So today is my first solo episode, and the first time that Apartment 6 is doing a solo episode, and that's because Marissa is home right now. She's spending some time with her family as I'm recording this, and so I, instead of trying to squeeze in a last minute recording with her, or instead of just skipping a week, we decided that I would do a solo episode. So welcome. I hope I do okay, and I hope you get something out of today. I'm going to be talking about Imposter Syndrome, but first we're going to jump into my roses and thorns. So my thorn of the week definitely has to be that I saw a mouse in my room. If you remember, I saw a mouse in my room a few months ago during quarantine, and before that had never seen one in the 8 months of living here. Now it's been almost a year. We've lived here for 10 months, and I've now seen a mouse twice. I was staying up late reading, and so it was like really quiet in my room, and I only had like a lamp on, and I feel like that was the exact kind of peaceful energy that this mouse wanted. It probably figured I was asleep, so it decided to sneak up on me. But basically, I just saw it in my room. It was like a quick encounter, and then it seemingly went away. Like I didn't see it. I like shook my desk because it was over by my desk, and it didn't come out, and so I am left thinking that it went away. Well, I know it went away because the next day, just like I did back in March or April, I like tore through my room and like vacuumed everything and wiped everything down, because obviously like when you see any kind of bug or rodent or any sort of pest, it just makes you feel kind of dirty. And I wipe things down a lot and I sweep my room a lot and whatever, but I was like, I'm gonna do a good vacuum under the bed, and I just kind of was in the mood for like I guess not a spring cleaning but a summer cleaning, so I did that. And so I know that it's not there, and in the meantime I tried to look for holes under my baseboard, and I patched a couple things with duct tape, just like some little gaps between like the wall and the hardwood floor. So I'm hoping that maybe I'm preventing a mouse from coming back in, but that just always stinks because it's not fun to feel like your environment that you normally think of as clean and safe and happy, to have it like intruded on by like a pest is very like I just don't like it at all. So that was definitely my thorn of the week. And Marissa was asleep when that happened. It was like at midnight. Like I said, I sort of stayed up late reading, and so I just kind of had to deal with it without my pal. But that was okay because it went away, and I like texted my mom about it, and she was consoling me. But moving on to my rose, I mean, I've honestly had a really nice last week, but I would have to say that my rose is my mom asked me to babysit our dog next week. So I guess technically this could be my rose for the following week, and maybe it will be, but I'm just like excited about it. And it's sort of like the big thing on my mind is like, oh, I get to have my pup with me for a whole week, and I'm just excited. And she's getting older, and she's in sort of like a vulnerable place. She limps a little bit, and she has a cough right now that she's taking medicine for. And so, she definitely needs some attention while I have her. She's definitely she gets me up really early, like whenever I see her. And like even years ago when I lived with her, she would, wake me up at like 7 a.m. for her walk and for food. And so I'm prepared to be like a total mom to her for the week. I'm prepared to like bow to her every command. But I'm just really looking forward to it. And it's just like making me, it's something that I'm looking forward to, I guess. Like that, I already said that. But, like I feel like with quarantine, especially, it's really important to have things to look forward to. And I even remember being younger and, like when you're younger and your schedule sort of is controlled by like the adults in your life or whatever. And I remember being like, okay, like what's the next thing I have to look forward to after I would finish something big, like a dance recital or, a soccer season would end or the musical I was in would end. And I would always be like, okay, like what's the next big thing I'm looking forward to? Or what's the next small thing I'm looking forward to after, my hangout with my friend was over. And I think that I still really run my life like that. Like I really try to live from like thing that I'm looking forward to thing that I'm looking forward to. And how many times can I say looking forward to? Jeez. But yeah, so that's something that, I am getting to look ahead to and I'm feeling happy about. So without further ado, I guess I will get into today's topic. Like I said, it's imposter syndrome. And just as a disclaimer, this episode might be a little shorter than normal. In fact, I guarantee it will be, just because there's not going to be, the back and forth of me and Marissa talking. And of course, like the roses and thorns are cut in half because it's only me. And I find that like when we are doing the show together, it's very much a back and forth and it's us sort of coming to revelations and talking things out. And that's the whole reason why this podcast is so great and why I think it's so special, is that it's very real conversations between two best friends. And I love that about it. And I feel like that's why something like a solo episode is going to be more of a rarity, because the whole premise is supposed to be that it's discussion based. But I do think there's a way to make the podcast feel like a discussion and feel that same sort of like authenticity and rawness, but like just with a single person. And I think that, in the future, Marissa's going to do some solo episodes too, just depending on how things go and what happens in our lives. So yeah, I hope you're okay with maybe getting a shorter episode than usual. I mean, this is on the heels of our longest episode to date. I think our last episode was like 140, an hour and 40 minutes. So if you got your fill with that, this might be sort of a relief, because I know that really long podcasts can be a lot to like sit through. Although I love them because they're great background for work and cooking and all things like that. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into imposter syndrome. So if you've never heard of imposter syndrome, the definition, according to Medical News Today, is as follows. People with imposter syndrome tendencies have low self-confidence and a fear of failure. They experience a constant internal struggle between achieving success and avoiding being, quote, found out. This struggle prevents many with the condition from reaching their potential. And the thing is, according to the APA, so the American Psychological Association, it's not a diagnosable condition, despite the fact that it's very real and it's very much something that people deal with and suffer with, but it's not listed in the DSM. So it's something that I wouldn't say that I have like chronically necessarily. Like I'm not trying to self-diagnose myself, despite the fact that you don't get diagnosed with it. But I do want to talk about the fact that it sort of put words to something that I've felt. And I feel like the first time I felt imposter syndrome, where I felt this sense of being a fraud or not fully being deserving of the achievements that I was reaching or of the acknowledgments I was getting or the affirmations of success I was receiving. I feel like the first time I experienced that was probably in college. I grew up in a like medium-sized town in Massachusetts and went through the public school system and felt pretty average. I've talked about this on the podcast before rather, in relation to like dating, how I felt like I was just like really average and like I didn't necessarily have like any like romantic relationships that were really serious, and I had good friends, but I wasn't necessarily like a standout among anything I did. Like I did theater and I was I guess good at it, but I wasn't like someone who got lead roles and got a lot of recognition in that area of my life, and I was definitely not the best at sports. I did play soccer for 9 years, and I did a season of softball, and I also tried out for the tennis team and didn't make it. I was told that I had a really strong swing, but really bad aim, meaning I literally could, put a lot of force behind the ball, but in the wrong direction. So that didn't get me on the tennis team. I was encouraged to try out again. I did not try out again. That was sort of like my freshman year when I was still figuring things out, and I always had an interest in tennis, but it wasn't something that I could ever really do before high school because there was no tennis team that I was aware of. But my point is I did receive recognitions in other ways. Like I, was on an honor roll and I was given some leadership positions and things like that. But for the most part, I felt really average and really normal and accepted. And I felt very much like part of the crowd kind of thing. And I think in college, what sort of changed that is that I was meeting people who were coming from all over the country. I went to Emerson, as we've discussed in earlier episodes, but if you're just tuning into the podcast, Marissa and I met at Emerson College in Boston, and it's a small liberal arts school, and I studied journalism there. And when I went into the program, I originally went thinking I wanted to do broadcast journalism. Specifically, I wanted to be like a news anchor, which ended up changing over time. Of course, I'm not doing that now, so of course it changed. But the thing is, I was around these people who came from all over the country, some people even out of the country, and a lot of them had a lot more experience than I did. A lot of them went to high schools that fostered things like arts and journalism and media and graphic design and sort of these creative outlets that my school didn't really, I guess, put money into and put pride into. I went to a high school in a town, honestly. I had a town that was very focused on, sports, and, the money was in sports. And I feel like there wasn't a lot of praise for art and for things like media. I don't think we had I don't remember any sort of like media class. There was like a photography class and I took that. And of course there were art classes, but I guess like I didn't feel like there was anywhere where I could learn, how to like make a film if I wanted to do that, like how to use a camera to like capture video. And I didn't learn, how to interview someone. Like I didn't learn those interpersonal skills, and I didn't learn, about social media, but of course social media was sort of up and coming. And I just feel like that wasn't encouraged of me. I didn't have any like writing classes for, that were like journalism adjacent. It was all just like English classes and things like that. And so I met people that went to like vocational schools or, had a newspaper that they went to after school. My school, I think we technically had a newspaper, but it like never ran issues. Like I might have gotten a single issue. So I just didn't really feel like I had that kind of outlet in school. And even if I did, honestly, I'm not sure I would have taken it because I was really busy in high school. I did theater and I had a job for like a year and a half. So that took up time. And I also like played a season of soccer, or actually 2 seasons of soccer during high school. I was in an a cappella group. I was pretty busy. So I think that I would have spent my time doing those things anyway. But the point is, I couldn't necessarily even say, like, oh, yeah, like we had something like that at my school and I tried it out. Or, oh, like this is sort of similar to this experience that I had. I really didn't feel like I had a lot of experience in my field in the way that other kids did. I had like little roles that might have helped influence my decision to go into journalism. For example, I was technically like the student representative for the school committee, which basically meant that I worked with our principal to gather like school news and present it to the school committee at their monthly meetings as like a way to keep them informed about like what's going on in the student body. So I wrote about that on my like application. I remember Emerson had me write something about like, I don't know, something about how I felt my experience lended itself to journalism. I don't really remember, but I wrote about that and how that was sort of, in my own way, an introduction to seeking, crafting, and delivering news or information. So I guess I wasn't completely in the dark, but I had no on-camera experience. And so when I was in classes like Foundations of Journalism, where we were given a camera for the first time, or technically we were given iPod touches and tripods, and told, okay, like go out and shoot something, create a story. Of course we had more guidance than that, but I was like, okay. And I was really, really figuring it out for the first time. And some of my classmates were like already ahead of me and like had their own camera equipment and, were just leaps and bounds ahead of where I felt I should be. And that only became clearer to me as I continued my college experience beyond like the 101 classes. Another thing that really stands out to me is I started doing news shows. So we had a couple of different like Emerson TV stations, and I worked on a like news at 6:00 show, and I just realized I kind of didn't feel like I completely knew what I was doing, and I didn't necessarily know all of the lingo and the jargon, and I was in like a decent position. I was an associate producer, and so I was editing writers' work, and so I was literally editing broadcast writing when I was just learning how to even write broadcast in my classes. And because I still wanted to be talent, I still had an interest in being like a reporter or an anchor. I went on to like audition for some of those same shows to be in front of the camera rather than behind it, and just like was met with rejections. And I sort of realized in that process, like, yeah, I would reject me too. I don't think I'm the best at this, and I feel like other people can do it better, and I kind of would rather them do it. I met like some great friends in the journalism program who were super talented on camera and so natural and really knew how to make a great video package, and that just wasn't me. I realized that and recognized that I wasn't, maybe I was a little jealous of those people for knowing what they wanted and being good at it, but I wasn't jealous in the way that I wished it was me doing it. I just felt like, yeah, I don't really belong in this. And I think that was sort of rattling for me. Like I wasn't sure if I should change my major. I remember texting one of my friends who was a couple years older than me, but also a journalism major, and being like, do I just have to get through these classes and then am I going to find out, that I really like this? Like, I don't know. Like I some of the things that we have to do in class, I feel uncomfortable doing. I don't I'm not loving being behind the camera. I'm not loving having to go up to people on the street and ask them if I can interview them, and not only interview them and, stick my phone. Like if I'm doing an interview where I'm writing, I can just, stick my phone out and have a conversation with them. But if, I was trying to do a video package, I was going to have to be like, okay, would you mind standing here and, talk to me, don't look at the camera. And I wasn't comfortable doing any of that. And I don't know how some of my classmates were, but they just were. And that was the first time that I really feel like I experienced imposter syndrome, was in those, freshman, sophomore year classes at Emerson, because it's just, I just feel like I started sort of behind, and I realized I don't think that me starting behind is what caused me to not want to go into broadcast, because I think that was never, I don't know that I wanted to do broadcast for the right reasons. I think that I thought that it just like seemed really cool and interesting and sort of like performance based, and I always enjoyed like performing. And so I think I sort of thought like, well, I have an interest in journalism, and if I I'm on camera, it's sort of like performing in a way. And I kind of like that marriage of like journalism and news and telling stories, but also having to sort of present myself and be on. I really thought that was like an interesting career choice, and I totally wouldn't go back if I were to, apply to college again. I would do the exact same thing and take the exact same path, because it really led me to where I needed to be. But that leads me into when I finally did find my thing. I decided that I really wanted to do like magazine and online writing. And online writing, I didn't necessarily say that at the time. Like I didn't say like, I want to write for an online publication. I just sort of said like, I think I want to write for magazines. But then also when you write for magazines now, you're writing for their online website a lot of times. You might get into their print magazine, but there are plenty of people who just write for the website. So I started sort of telling my professors that and telling my advisor that, and we decided on classes that were a better fit for me and sort of went away from that broadcast track. And I started to really find my niche, and I found that so much more fulfilling. And I started working for a campus magazine. But in this, it presented sort of a new issue. It was now I was sort of starting over halfway through college. I didn't sign up for that magazine to be like a writer until fall of my junior year. And so I definitely was, again, sort of behind, because some people came into Emerson being like, I definitely want to do magazine writing, and, I'm not interested in being on camera. I'm not interested in broadcast writing, things like that. And so I definitely, again, felt that sense of like, I don't belong, like I'm not doing this right. If they find out that I haven't always wanted to do this, they're not going to think of me the same way. Like they are people who are just natural at this, and this just came so natural to them. And like, they're going to find out that I'm not that way. And I got a leadership position, an editor position for the magazine. And I remember being like, why did I get this? Like I really liked it, and I was really happy about it. And I think I did a decent job, but it just seemed like I didn't really know why me. And I think that that's a feeling that is carried with me, and that is finally starting to go away. But before it went away, I had to sort of figure out why it was happening. Why did I feel like I wasn't confident in my skills? Oh, well, maybe there's something I haven't learned in class yet, or maybe it's just that I haven't done enough writing, or I haven't done enough editing. And so it took me, building up my portfolio and just like proactively like looking for work, doing internships and sort of being incessant about getting internships. Like I would cold email a place and be like, hi, I don't even know if you're doing an internship program, but I would love to be your intern for the summer. And it took not getting paid for positions, and that's crap, by the way. You should get paid for your work. Experience doesn't pay the bills, honey. So now you kind of know how my imposter syndrome started. It really started in college, and it started with having a shift in my career desires, going in thinking I wanted broadcast, realizing I wasn't necessarily made for that, then starting over with magazines and being behind in that. And I started really getting confidence the more experience I got, and the more I saw my resume building up and my portfolio building up. And I started believing people when they gave me internships, when they said like, yeah, we want to work with you. I started being like, yeah, I deserve to work with them because they're telling me that I deserve it. And I think just like taking those compliments or taking those affirmations at face value really helped me build my confidence. But I would say that, the imposter syndrome kind of started to ramp up again when I graduated, because I was applying to all of these positions at magazines and online publications, and I wasn't getting anything that I wanted. And so I started applying to things that I didn't really want, or that I didn't really have the perfect skill set for, but I had like adjacent skills. For example, like social media, copywriting, and things like that. Like I didn't study, I was a marketing minor, but I didn't like study copywriting for social media. Like that wasn't, that's also not a major, I don't think. But what I'm trying to say is that wasn't something that I necessarily specialized in, but I was like, well, I know how to write and I know how to do social media. I have, this marketing and journalism hybrid thing going on. I'm going to try that. And, I don't really want to write hard news, but I'm going to apply here and do that. And so in the end, I ended up taking a part-time job at a news station. And I really enjoyed that job overall. I had a really positive experience, but it again definitely ramped up the imposter syndrome, because here I was, this person who had gone into college thinking I want to do broadcast, and then completely changed tracks. And then now I'm doing broadcast again, but I haven't done it in a couple of years, and I didn't want to do it. And I worked for the web team, so technically I was writing for online and managing the website on the weekends and doing social media and things like that. So I wasn't exactly like doing broadcast, but just the fact that I was around people who had job titles that I didn't even understand. Like I completely left that world. And of course, the only time I was in that world, it was on a college campus. And so, yes, we have like the same titles, I guess, but there's not nearly as many people that go into it. And the equipment is different. And the whole production of it is so much more intense and different. And here I was back in that world for the first time and feeling like I shouldn't be trusted with this. I don't know how to do this. I don't even know what everyone's position is. And even if they were to tell me their title, I wouldn't necessarily understand what that means. I don't know who to go for this type of thing or that type of thing. And I think what pulled me out of that was just getting good at that job. I feel like by the end of it, I was decent. Well, honestly, I felt like I did great with that job. I really pushed past some of the fears I had and the like trepidations I had about reporting hard news. I was, really worried about getting things wrong, and not because it was me, but because it was the station. Like if I alerted something wrong on the app, it was not my name that was going to take the fall for it. It was going to be the station, and that was scary for me. So I think what really helped me was just getting better at that job and being like, okay, well, I can learn anything. I can conquer anything. This field is something that I'm passionate about. And just because I'm not doing lifestyle and, just because I've veered a little bit off the path that I decided on a couple of years ago after not wanting to do broadcast anymore, doesn't mean that I can't still dabble in it. Doesn't mean that I can't change my mind. Doesn't mean that I can't one day do lifestyle and then another day do hard news. Like I started getting more comfortable with the idea that journalism is a very broad field, and that I got an education that allows me to take part in it in multiple different ways and forms, and that really you don't have to be an expert in any subject. You just have to be a good journalist. You have to ask the right questions, and you have to know how to deliver the information. And in my own way, I was doing that for this station, and that really helped me get more confident in myself. Heading into more present day, a year ago, I left my job at, well, more than a year ago now, a year and a half ago, almost, kind of, whatever. A year and a couple of months ago, I left the job at the news station, and I started a new job where I'm the lifestyle writer for a company, and I review products. So I review beauty and health products mostly. And at first, I would say my imposter syndrome kicked in a little bit, because I was like, who am I to be reviewing these products? Like, I also tend to be someone who, to a fault almost, can see both sides and everything. Like, I am someone who will be like, I totally see your point. Like, I could totally disagree with you, but be like, I see your point and I can find value in this, in what you're saying. However, blah, 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 blah. And I'm kind of the same way about products. I tend to be like, I didn't love this, but like maybe that's me, maybe it's a me problem, or like maybe it wasn't so bad. Like I kind of gaslight myself when it comes to products. And the reason I kind of knew this was because I had done this thing called Influenster before my current job. Now I can't do it because of my current job, but Influencer is basically like they'll send you products for free that are, launching, that the brand wants feedback about, and that the brand like wants people to write reviews for. And you don't have to write a positive review by any means, but you get this free product and you get to try it, and you get points on Influencer if you make a comment on the brand's Instagram, or I don't know, it's like all this different stuff. And you can, if you write like a review post, or if you write an Instagram post and things like that. And I guess it just makes it more likely that you're going to get chosen for another, what they call Vox Box, aka more like free product. And this was really fun for me. It was a fun way for me to try out some new beauty products. And so I started doing that because I was like, why would I not do that? I love beauty products and I love health related products. And this was like a fun way for me to just like try new things and write about it online. So I started doing that, and I realized with a lot of stuff I would be like, well, I can't really tell if it worked, especially if it's like skincare, because that's a lot of what I ended up getting was things like skincare. I got like a vitamin C serum and like a toner. I can't remember what else, to be honest. But the point is, I often would find maybe like a little bit of fault, but not much. A lot of times I would just sort of walk away being like, oh, I don't really see a huge difference, but like that doesn't mean there hasn't been a difference. I don't really know about the efficacy of the product. And so going into my current job, I was nervous about that. I was really excited about the prospect of being able to try out products and review them and write about them. And I was also excited about all the other stuff that comes with the job, which is not just reviewing products, but, also just writing articles about beauty and health, and, writing about the skin, and writing about your feet, and writing about your hair, and things like that. I was excited for all parts of the job, but I was nervous about the whole reviewing aspect of it, because I just was like, what if I don't measure up? Like, what if they don't think that I'm good enough at this? What if they realize that I'm just a 24-year-old, or I guess at the time I was 23. What if they realize I'm just a 23-year-old kid who just likes beauty products, but, isn't necessarily an expert? And I just had all these doubts. I really doubted myself. And when I first started, I remember I had a lot of articles to write, and, we'd really filled my calendar, and I wasn't necessarily up to speed. I was definitely writing a lot, and I was trying really hard, but I wasn't necessarily hitting all of my deadlines, because I had like a lot of deadlines, I guess. And, it was just sort of the newness of getting used to the job. And it was so different from what I'd been doing, where, when you walk out of the newsroom, you're done. And when you go back the next day, you're working on completely different news stories, and there's never any sort of like long form, like working on this and then, making some changes here and there and testing this and scoring it. And there's nothing, like that. It's just you go in and news breaks and you write about it, and then you go home and you leave it behind. And so I was getting used to the idea that, whatever work I did one day affected the next day. If I got everything done for a story, then the next day I didn't have to work on it. But if I didn't, I had to finish it up, and that would impede on the time that I had to start the next story. And I was balancing getting interviews done, because all of a sudden I was interviewing people again. When I worked for the web team, I wasn't doing that, because there are reporters who were doing the interviews. And so I was writing based on their interviews, and I was writing based on press releases. And so it was just a completely different world. And it was the world that I wanted to be in, but it took getting used to, and it took sort of getting to understand what was expected of me, and also asking for what I felt I needed. And it took a lot of just back and forth and experience, and learning from one experience to the next, and changing up how I would do things between them. And I think that right now in this time, I don't experience imposter syndrome. I very much feel like I deserve what I have, and I belong, and I feel confident in what I'm doing and what I'm putting out into the world, at work and otherwise. But I think that for me, a lot of what helped me overcome it was just becoming the expert that I didn't feel I was at the time. It took me, or not even becoming the expert, but knowing who to ask. Like, if I'm writing a story about something related to skin, like talking to a dermatologist, and just building up my knowledge on these topics, and also building up my network of people who I can ask about them. And it also, I have like an awesome team, and I have an incredible pair of editors, and they have been so like affirming, and have been so kind to me, and really let me know when I'm doing a great job. And they really let me know like what my strong suits are, and where I could improve. And so I never feel like I'm just like floundering, and I never feel like I'm being lied to. I really feel like they would tell me if there was something wrong, and I really feel like when they tell me that I'm doing something right, it's because they actually do think that. And so I think that for me, overcoming it was just like being in a position where I feel really happy about what I'm doing, and I feel really rewarded by my work, and I am around people that see value in my work in the same way that I do. Because that was the other thing, at previous jobs I've had, I felt like the least important person in the room. at all times. And I definitely don't feel that way. I definitely don't feel like I'm the most important person in the room. That's like not the point. But I feel valued. And I think that, these things that this episode isn't meant to be like here's what imposter syndrome is and how you can overcome it type of thing. It's meant to just like have a conversation about imposter syndrome and about times in my life where I've felt it and have felt like a fraud, and I felt like I don't deserve success, and have felt like I am doubtful of the success that I have achieved, or I downplay it, or I'm scared of it, or I think that I really wanted to talk about this because it's something that I've experienced, and I've talked to Marissa about it, and she's like, I don't necessarily experience it to the degree that you do. And it was something that I feel like she learned more about like through me talking about it. So she was like, yeah, you should totally do a solo episode on that. Like that could be a solo episode for you if you end up doing one day. And so when it came time to record tonight, I was like, that's going to be the move. And again, so I don't want this to be like here's how to overcome it. I think that a lot of what I'm saying is circumstantial. I was in situations that didn't feel super gratifying or didn't feel super supportive, and now I'm in a situation that feels a lot better, and I'm also doing what I always wanted to do. And so I don't want the advice to be like, you have to get your dream job and work with like the dream people and all that, because a lot of that's not attainable. But I think that it's just, it's recognizing where you're feeling you're lacking. Like, why are you feeling like you don't deserve success? Or why are you feeling like a fraud? Like, what is it that you would be fooling people about? Because if it's like, oh, I don't have enough knowledge on that, it's like, well, maybe you could get the knowledge, or maybe you don't have to have it. You just have to know how to find it. And I think that we all go through this, especially, being someone who's young and is really early on in my career and still figuring a lot out and still feeling doubtful of myself at times and doubtful of what I deserve. Because that definitely is still a thing. It's not that I now feel like I'm completely great. Like I definitely at times like have doubted myself more recently in like what I deserve in terms of things like compensation, or in terms of like workload balance. Is it right for me to ask for this, or is it right for me to slack a little bit here so that I could put some more effort in over here? And there are definitely times where we have to advocate for ourselves, and we have to figure out what it is that would bring us more joy or more gratification, and ask for those things. And I think that I've gotten, now that I've been at my job for over a year, I've felt more comfortable advocating for myself. And I think that that's a huge part in my imposter syndrome going away, is that I feel more like I have more agency, I guess, in my work and in my title and my work title. So I think that those things have really helped me feel more legitimate in my work, is just like taking agency over it and being like, this is something that I've been doing for a year, and I know how to do, and I know how to manage. And so I feel more confident asking for things and, making changes and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I hope this episode was interesting. I'm curious to know if any of you have ever experienced imposter syndrome. I feel like it's hard not to when you're young, and our demographic for this podcast is for the most part young. It's for the most part people our age, me and Marissa's age. So I feel like many of you probably have at least had that nagging feeling, in a job interview that you're like, shit, should I even be in this job interview? Or, you have maybe felt like you don't deserve the success that you do. And I'm totally open to hearing about your experience in the comments on Instagram or in our DMs. I really enjoyed talking today. This ended up not being too much shorter than normal, but I love doing this. I don't know, just like thanks for listening, and please feel free to follow this podcast on Spotify and give it a rating on Apple Podcasts, and follow us on Instagram. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Bye, guys.